got it. Got me one here that looks like he got into a fight. He's look at that. He's all torn up right there. Got him on a swim bait, just kind of covering this area fast. Got a little bit of wind kicked up, so slow fishing's kind of out of the question, but you know, just kind of getting them with a little swim bait. But today what I really want to do is talk to you guys about jig trailers. So it's Dalton, everybody. Here in just a little bit, I'm going to sit down and talk to you guys about how I choose jig trailers. I did a jig video not too long ago, but I didn't cover how I choose my trailers. So I'm going to do that here in just a little bit. Fish. Come here, buddy. Come here. Whew. That's a nice fish. So, got a little swim bait bite. I saw a bunch of them down here deeper. Decided to get on a Hula Grub bite here. Beautiful fish. Healthy, strong, heavy, and so I'm kind of add on to this video. I'll go over how I choose a jig trailer, but I'll also go over the difference between a Hula Grub and a jig. All right, so got on a little swim bait bite today. There was a lot of wind. There were wind gusts. Now it's all calm. And then there were these, you know, wind gusts that would come. So pretty much the swim bait worked for me. Same one I used the other day, 3/8 ounce, and just slow rolling it, just right off the bottom. I was getting bites that way. But today I want to talk about a jig trailers, and the difference between the Hula Grub and the jig, because a Hula Grub is a jig. So here's a Hula Grub right here I was using today. And this is the 5-inch one. I've got it on a little 1/4 ounce ball head jig, 12-pound test line. And the biggest difference between a Hula Grub and a jig are the appendages here. Not so much, you know, the stuff on the bottom, but these appendages. If you notice, they're not very long. Okay. Now, if you get a jig, and this is a 3/4 ounce, and I didn't get any bites on this today, but if you notice, you can have the same type of a trailer as a Hula Grub, but what you have in a jig that you don't have in a Hula Grub are all of these appendages. You just have more appendages with a regular jig than a Hula Grub. So I work them both entirely different. When I'm throwing a jig like this, I want to maintain bottom contact the entire time for the most part. There are times I'll stroke a jig, swim a jig, that kind of stuff. But when I'm using, like, this is a football jig, I want bottom contact. I want to slowly drag it around, and I just catch more fish that way on a jig when I do it. Now, the key to the appendages, when I talked about this in my recent jig video, is that they flare up when it's on the bottom. So literally looks like something in a defensive position, but because it's flaring up, it's a little bit easier for them to see. So that's the big difference there. More appendages on a jig, so I'm going to drag it. As far as a Hula Grub, the key to a Hula Grub, and the real effectiveness to a Hula Grub to me, is on the fall. Sometimes they'll take it on the fall, but it just seems like on the fall, that's when they begin to track it. So it has smaller appendages, so I'm not going to really drag this around much. Yeah, these appendages will stick up some, but not as much as a regular jig. So what I do with a Hula Grub is now, instead of using a heavier weight, trying to get away with the heaviest weight I can like I do on a jig, Now I'm going to try to get away with a lighter weight. If I'm going to throw it on a spinning rod, I might go with an 1/8 ounce weight. This one here is a 1/4 ounce. I had some wind, so I needed a little bit of weight today. And the way I throw a hula grub as opposed to the jig, instead of dragging it, I like to let it hit the bottom, and I like to do 1 to 2 foot lifts. Give it slack line and let it fall straight back down. Shake it a little bit in place. If nothing has it, give it 1 or 2 feet and let it slowly just go right back to the bottom. To me, the effectiveness of a hula grub, for me, is always on the fall. I believe that's when they start tracking it. And what happens a lot of time with a hula grub is you're doing this lift, drop, lift, and drop. You'll go to reel it in, and the hula grub goes a little bit faster, and then bam, a bass will just hit it. So I really do like hula grubs. So let's talk about trailers, jig trailers. I look for 3 things in a jig trailer. I'm a simple fisherman. I try to simplify everything I do in my life, including fishing. 3 things. I want one with a lot of movement, one with some movement, and one with little to no movement. That's what I'm looking for when it comes to a jig. Now, let me give you some ideas. Let's start from the third one, a little bit of movement. A little bit of movement, there's a couple of things I will do. Well, I don't have one out right now, but you guys are familiar with the Ned Rig TRD Ned bait. I will take one of those in the wintertime when it's super duper cold, the fish aren't moving as fast, and I just cannot seem to get them to get a jig with any other type of trailer. I will put a TRD as a jig. It's got virtually no movement to it, but sometimes in the wintertime when it's really cold, that's exactly what I need. Now in the wintertime, and just about any time, I also like these little rage bugs. This is a Strike King rage bug. This is the 3-inch one, okay? And what I do is I take these little appendages and I tear them off because I don't need them. I just want the legs, that's all. I'll trim this down if I need to, but this is a good wintertime jig trailer because you are going to get some movement, but not a lot of it. Another one that's really good, and you can use this both ways. You can use it in the wintertime, and it still has a little bit less movement than some trailers, or any other time, and that's a Strike King Rage Menace. So these are kind of a little bit smaller, but I like both of these for jigs. Now, let's go with a little more flappier trailer. And I really like the flappy trailers this time of year, as these bass are real active in the fall. They're feeding up. So one of the ones that's slowly becoming one of my favorites is the Fat Albert Twin Tail by Zoom. That's what I got tied on, that 3/4 ounce. That's been working really good for me. Probably not best in the winter when everything slows down, but definitely right now or in the summertime, it's going to work really good. Another one that's kind of, got a whole ton of action, and that's a Yum Christy Craw. This is also one of my very favorites when it comes to a jig trailer. I will trim it down, make it fit right. But I'll tell you another thing about the Yum Christy Craw that I like is you can Texas rig this, throw it in rocks, bushes, whatever. It's got a lot of movement. I would say of these jig trailers, this would be the one I probably use more in the winter, a little less movement. And this is kind of the in-between one. This is the one that would be in between that real flappy one and the one that's not moving very much, or even just using a TRD if I needed to move even less. So this is kind of your medium, and that's your Strike King Rage Menace. That's how I choose my jig trailers. It's really simple. I do not make it complicated. Certain times of the year I want a fast or floppy one. Certain times I want one that's kind of in the middle, and then sometimes I want one that has little or no movement at all. One of the things you can do with these little rage bugs is you don't have to split the tails. And in the wintertime, that'll give you, much less movement when it gets really cold and those bass are kind of keying in on things that aren't moving quite as much. And then the difference between, just wrapping up, the difference between the hula grub and the jig, I drag the jig and I lift and drop the hula grub. That's pretty much my technique with those two. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think we're supposed to get some rain coming here not before long. And I probably am not going to do a lot of fishing in the rain this year. I'm kind of enjoying being a little bit of a fair weather fisherman now. And I like to find days like this and go out fishing. It's just a lot of fun for me. But thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, I appreciate you. I hope this video helped. I'll talk to you next time.